of Giriraj, Swami Maharaj, and today he will be sharing with us Shri Krishna Katha from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we encourage all devotees to be very attentive, pay attention, and at the end, I promise you, you're going to be so much in bliss. Hare Krishna. So Maharaj, without further ado, I know you usually prefer to do the Mangalacharam, so you may do that and then we'll put the verse on the screen.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Sam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamcha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Prabhu Nityananda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Chamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glory is to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. Now we shall read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19. The appearance of Shukadeva Goswami. Text 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Tatas
Ta
cha
cha
va
va
prichayam
vichayam
imam
imam
vipriche
viche
vishrabhya
vishya
vipra
vipra
iti
iti
krityachayam
vityapyam
sarvatmana
sarvatmana
mriyamanais
Mriyamanis
cha
cha
krityam
krityam
shuddham
shuddham
cha
cha
tatram rishatabhyuta
tatras nityam
tatachava pritchamimam viprichate vishrabhya vipra iti krityatatayam sarvatmanamriyamanaistakrityam idam tatram
okay.
niyuktata tascha prityam imam vipriche.
It's right, like. It's a very rich area also.
Vishramya vipra iti krityayatyam sarvatmanamriyamanaischa krityam shuddham chatatram rishatabhiyukta tata. As such, ta
Cha
and
and
va
va
unto you
unto you
prichyam
prityam
which is to be asked
which is to be asked
imam
imam
this
this
vipriche
vipriche
beg to ask you
that to ask
vishrabhya
vishrabhya
trustworthy
trustworthy
vipra
vipra
brahmanas
brahmanas
iti
iti
thus
Yes.
krityatayam
vityatayam
out of all different duties
out of all different duties
sarva atmana
sarva
by everyone
every
mriyamananai especially those who are about to die
especially those who are just about to die.
cha
Cha
and
and
krityam
krityam
dutiful
beautiful,
shuddham
shuddham
perfectly correct
perfectly correct,
cha
cha
and
and
tatra
tatra
therein
therein
amrishata
mrishatya
by complete deliberation
by complete preparation,
abhiyukta
abhiyukta
just befitting.
just befitting.
Translation: O trustworthy Brahmins, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically of those who are just about to die. Please repeat. O trustworthy Brahmins,
O trustworthy Brahman,
I now ask you about my immediate duty.
I now ask you about my immediate duty.
Please, after proper deliberation,
Please, after proper deliberation,
tell me of the unalloyed duty
tell me of the
Unalloyed duty
of everyone
of everyone
in all circumstances,
in all circumstances,
and specifically
and specifically
of those
of those
who are just about to die.
who are just about to die.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the king has placed two questions before the learned sages. The first question is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? Out of the two, the question relating to the dying man is most important, because everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. The duration of life is immaterial, but the duty of a dying man is very important. So as Srila Prabhupada says, Maharaj Parikshit knew that he had 7 days to live, but we do not know if we have 7 days or 7 hours or 7 minutes. Death can come at any time, and therefore, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, we are all dying, and therefore the question, what is the duty of a man who is about to die, is very relevant and important for all of us. And therefore we should take heed of the answer. So out of the two, the question relating to the dying man is most important, because everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. The duration of life is immaterial, but the duty of a dying man is very important. Maharaj Parikshit placed these two questions before Shukadeva Goswami, also on his arrival. And practically the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from the 2nd canto up to the last, the 12th canto, deals with these two questions. The conclusion arrived at thereof is that devotional service of the Lord, Sri Krishna, as it is confirmed by the Lord himself in the last phases of the Bhagavad Gita, is the last word in relation to everyone's permanent duty in life. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru mam evaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. So manmana means always think of Krishna. Mad bhakta, become Krishna's devotee. Madhyaji, worship Krishna. And mam namaskaru, offer obeisances to the Lord. Manmana bhavad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru, my vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. And if you do these things, you will come to Krishna. And Krishna promises us this. So that's 1865, and then 1866. Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayisma mima suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religiousness and just surrender unto me. I will protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So this is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. It is also the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is the duty of everyone in all circumstances to render devotional service to Krishna. And especially, it is the duty of one who is about to die to chant and hear the glories of the Lord. So coming back to the purport, the conclusion arrived at thereof is that devotional service of Lord Sri Krishna, as it is confirmed by the Lord himself in the last phases of the Bhagavad Gita, is the last word in relation to everyone's permanent duty in life. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of this fact, but he wanted the great sages assembled there to unanimously give their verdict on his conviction so that he might be able to go on with his confirmed duty without controversy. So this is another important point. Although Maharaj Parikshit was aware of what his duty was, he wanted the great sages assembled there to confirm it so that he could proceed with their blessings and there would be no controversy in the matter. So the blessings of the sages, of the Vaishnavas, is very important. There are three authorities in spiritual life: Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. Shastra is the central point. Sadhu lives his life in accordance with the Shastra. Guru also lives his life in accordance with the Shastra, and he teaches the principles of the Shastra. So Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, Vakya. And here, Maharaj Parikshit wanted the blessings of the sadhus to proceed with the course that he already knew was appropriate. But still, he wanted their confirmation and blessings. He has especially mentioned the word Shuddha, or perfectly correct. For transcendental realization or self-realization, many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are first-class methods, and some of them are second or third-class methods. The first-class method demands that one give up all other methods and surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus be saved from all sins and their reactions. So this last line of the purport is a paraphrase of Bhagavad Gita 1866, which I mentioned earlier, but still I'll repeat it because Srila Prabhupada repeated it. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja tam sarva papebhyo mokshayisyami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. And since our host has kindly put the purport on the screen, we will also read the purport because it is so important and relevant. The Lord has described various kinds of knowledge and processes of religion. Knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, knowledge of the Supersoul, knowledge of the different types of orders and statuses of social life, knowledge of the renounced order of life, knowledge of non-attachment, sense, and mind control, meditation, etc. He has described in so many ways different types of religion. Now, in summarizing Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that Arjuna should give up all the processes that have been explained to him. He should simply surrender to Krishna. That surrender will save him from all kinds of sinful reactions, for the Lord personally promises to protect him. In the 7th chapter, it was said that only one who has become free from sinful reactions can take to the worship of Krishna. Yes, yesham tvantagatam papam. That is a very important verse, which says that one who has yesham tvantagatam papam, one who has become free from sinful activities and has engaged in pious activities. So yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajanti mam vridavritaha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So That is the verse to which Srila Prabhupada is alluding here in the purport, in the 7th chapter. It was said that only one who has become free from all sinful reactions can take to the worship of Lord Krishna. Thus, one may think that unless he is free from all sinful reactions, he cannot take to the surrendering process. To such doubts, it is here said that even if one is not freed from all sinful reactions, simply by the process of surrendering to Sri Krishna, he is automatically freed. There is no need of strenuous effort to free oneself from sinful reactions. One should unhesitatingly accept Krishna as the supreme savior of all living entities. With faith and love, one should surrender unto him. Now, what is the process of surrender? Srila Prabhupada explains in the next paragraph. The process of surrender to Krishna is described in the Hari Bhakti Vilas 11.676. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam Shikshyati vishvaso gopchitve varanam tata atma nikshepa karpanye sadvida sharanagati. According to the devotional process, one should simply accept religious principles that will lead ultimately to the devotional service of the Lord. Yes. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjana. One should accept what is favorable and reject what is unfavorable. One may perform a particular occupational duty according to his position in the social order. But if by executing his duty, one does not come to the point of Krishna consciousness, all his activities are in vain. Yes, the Bhagavatam says, Shrama evaki kevalam, simply waste of time. And I'll read that verse. That's Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1, text, Canto 1, chapter 2, text 8. Dharma sanustita pumsam vishvakshena katasuya no padaya dyati ratim shrama eva hikevalam. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the messages of the personality of Godhead. And since our host has been kind enough to put up the translation and purport, we'll also read the purport. There are different occupational activities in terms of man's different conceptions of life. To the gross materialist who cannot see anything beyond the gross material body, there's nothing beyond the senses. Therefore, his occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. Concentrated selfishness centers around the personal body. This is generally seen amongst the lower animals. Extended selfishness is manifested in human society and centers around the family, society, community, nation, and world with a view to gross bodily comfort. Above these gross materialists are the mental speculators who hover aloft in the mental spheres, and their occupational duties involve making poetry and philosophy or propagating some ism with the same aim of selfishness limited to the body and the mind. But above the body and mind is the dormant spirit soul, whose absence from the body makes the whole range of bodily and mental selfishness completely null and void. But less intelligent people have no information of the needs of the spirit soul. Because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and mind, they are not satisfied in the performance of their occupational duties. The question of the satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument, that means improvement, of the body and mind. The body and the mind are superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. There is a dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord, and any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. Shrama eva hi kevalam. This is because other occupational duties, whatever ism they may belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. Even the activities of the Salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that the material gain is limited only to time and space, either in this world or in the other. Even if he goes up to Svargaloka, the heavenly planet, he will find no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. So, my dear devotees, we can see how much nectar there is in Srila Prabhupada's books, in the Bhagavad Gita, and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we immerse ourselves in the study of Srila Prabhupada's books, we will be enlightened spiritually and enlivened spiritually. So we should immerse ourselves in the reading and study of Srila Prabhupada's books. And of course, by discussing the books, the matter becomes clarified. in one of the last purports that Srila Prabhupada dictated to Srimad Bhagavatam when he was in his last days in Vrindavan, he said, study Srimad Bhagavatam daily as much as possible. It is Mahamuni Krite, compiled by Vyasadeva in his maturity. Each and every word is transcendental. And Srila Prabhupada said, the more you discuss, the more the matter will become clarified. So we welcome such initiatives as this that bring devotees together to read and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm grateful for the opportunity to join. And now, if any of you wish to ask any questions or share any reflections, you're free to do so. You can raise your hand, your physical hand or your virtual hand, and we will discuss more. And as far as possible, also I request the devotees to put their cameras on so we can see your moon-like faces and it will be more personal. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Maharaj, for such a beautiful class as always. Beautiful Krishna Katha. You spoke mostly about what Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada himself has said from his purports. So, dear devotees, like Maharaj said, if anyone has a question, comment, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I had read about a prayer that one gopi prayed to Krishna, that just by thinking of Krishna, you get so much bliss and satisfaction. And what to speak of having him personally, directly with you and rendering direct service to him. So I was wondering, because we've met virtually, of course I am seeing you, but I cannot touch your lotus feet, for example, but I can do that on the screen. But my question is, does that have like the same impact as seeing the person in person? Like we've met virtually, we've seen you, you've seen us. Hopefully we deriving some blessings. But is this the same as meeting the person in person? Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Well, Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, it is inconceivably one and different. It is the same because you're hearing the words, the transcendental sound vibration, and you also get to ask questions and get answers. But there is a benefit to being in the presence of a sadhu in person. A sadhu, and I'm not speaking about myself, it doesn't apply to me necessarily, but a sadhu is infused with bhakti shakti. And so when you're in his presence, some of that bhakti shakti can reach you. So I would say if you can associate in person with a sadhu, you should take the opportunity. But even otherwise, hearing from the sadhus on the internet is also very beneficial. So both are good.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. So, did what is anyone with a question, comment, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Can I
Krishna,
ask?
Gail, yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Oh, let me see. Put it on my camera, how that works. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I have a question, but I want to follow up on Sahadeva's question first. So, I was wondering whether the Shakti of, a pure devotee, or I guess maybe even any devotee, can it not, is it really restricted by technology? If a person is listening to that sadhu attentively, would that Shakti of the pure devotee be hampered by the fact that the communication is only virtual?
I would say that one will get the Shakti, the Bhakti Shakti of the sadhu, even meeting on Zoom, meeting on the internet. Yes, why not?
Well, because I was trying to reconcile that with, your last statement that, concerning this Shakti and that in-person Shakti.
Yeah. I mean, there is a little advantage, I guess you could say, to meeting with the sadhu face to face. But you can still derive great benefits even through Zoom.
Yeah, and I imagine too that the consciousness of the hearer is also a factor in how much benefit is received. Because if a person's consciousness is such that they're listening with great faith, just virtually, they would benefit more than somebody who is physically present before the sadhu, but maybe not so attentive or not so faithful. Isn't it?
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of conception, that if the male is potent and if the female is fertile, then conception will take place. So similarly, if the speaker is bona fide and the listener is receptive, then the transcendental knowledge can be communicated. So it depends on both.
Mm-hmm.
The potency of the speaker and the receptivity of the listener.
Right. Thank you, Maharaj. So now for my other question. Yeah, my other question has to do with, I'm trying to make a better distinction between surrender, which is known as the doorway to bhakti, and bhakti itself. Because the 6 angas of surrender, they all seem to involve bhakti, devotional service, right? Yet they are only called doorway to bhakti. So Can you help me to make this distinction?
Yes, surrender, in a way, you could say is, yeah, it's opens the doorway to bhakti. And I mean, we read briefly about the 6 divisions of surrender, but it's such an important point that I think I would like to read about that in more detail, because it will really help us in our spiritual advancement if we can apply those. So the verse is, as quoted in CC Madhya 22:100, Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshasyati vishvaso goptriptre varanam tata atma nikshepa karpanye sadvida sharanagati. Translation. The 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Krishna will give full protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full self-surrender, and humility. And Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport, one who is fully surrendered is qualified with the 6 following characteristics. The devotee has to accept everything that is favorable for the rendering of transcendental loving service to the Lord. 2, he must reject everything unfavorable to the Lord's service. This is also called renunciation. 3, a devotee must be firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. No one else can actually give one protection. And being firmly convinced of this is called faith. This kind of faith is different from the faith of an impersonalist who wants to merge into the Brahman effulgence in order to benefit by cessation of repeated birth and death. A devotee wants to remain always in the Lord's service. In this way, Krishna is merciful to his devotee and gives him all protection from the dangers found on the path of devotional service. 4, the devotee should accept Krishna as his supreme maintainer and master. He should not think that he is being protected by a demigod. He should depend only on Krishna, considering him the only protector. The devotee must be firmly convinced that within the 3 worlds, he has no protector or maintainer other than Krishna. 5, self-surrender, that's Atmanikshepa. Self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. The devotee is completely dependent on Krishna, and he acts as he thinks Krishna desires. 6, the devotee is meek and humble. Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridisani visto matas nitirgyanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavit Eva Chaham. Quote, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas, end quote. Situated in everyone's heart, Krishna deals differently according to the living entity's position. The living entity's position is to be under the protection of the illusory energy or under Krishna's personal protection. When a living entity is fully surrendered, he is under the direct protection of Krishna, and Krishna gives him all intelligence by which he can advance in spiritual realization. The non-devotee, however, being under the protection of the illusory energy, increasingly forgets his relationship with Krishna. Sometimes it is asked how Krishna causes one to forget. Krishna personally causes his devotee to forget material activities, and through the agency of Maya, Krishna causes the non-devotee to forget his devotional service to the Lord. This is called apohana. So, yes, the 6 divisions of surrender, as mentioned here, are important for the devotee to adhere to while engaged in the process of devotional service, so that he engages in devotional service in the proper consciousness. So, yeah, it's a very important verse and purport. And we should all examine ourselves to what extent we are adhering to the process of surrender and try to improve.
Maharaj, both the 6th limb and the 3rd limb spoke of Krishna's protection. I think I need a little clarification of how they are different. The 6th limb was a description of our humility, right?
Yeah, the devotee is meek and humble. That's number 6.
Yeah, and so this one was fuzzy for me, to be honest, because we are, in other words, our humility and the connection between our humility and the fact that it is Krishna who is directly protecting us, not Mahamaya,
Mm-hmm.
If you could, I don't know, put that another way or somehow clarify that for me. And how you would distinguish that from the protection of the 3rd limb. Why is that getting a separate limb from the 3rd one? That the devotee is convinced that only Krishna gives protection.
Yeah, the 2 are related, but they are distinct. 3, a devotee must be firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. So, of course, that conviction requires humility. Because if one is not humble, one may think that he can protect himself. So, in a way, humility is a prerequisite for number 3. A devotee must be firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. But 6, the devotee is meek and humble. that has application in every aspect of devotional life, not just in being firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. So, although humility is related to number 3, the significance of humility extends beyond number 3.
Okay, yeah, I know. I mean, I know humility is a very big word, multifaceted word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, still one last thing about surrender is that, when we say one of the limbs is to accept anything favorable, for example, well, for example, just attending this class or reading or so many limbs of devotional service, they are favorable. Those are considered favorable for devotional service. So why do we say, therefore, that accepting things favorable for devotional service is only a doorway to bhakti, not bhakti itself?
Well, it is part of bhakti. I mean,
doorway implies that it's only leading to bhakti. It gives you, puts you in a good position for bhakti, but that's not the same as saying it is bhakti.
Well, Srila Rupa Goswami gives the definition of bhakti. Anya vilasita sunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena Krishna anushilanam bhakti uttama. So that the same word anukul is there. Anukul means favorable, and it's anu has 2 meanings. One is to follow, and another is continuous. So anukulyena Krishna anushilanam. So anushilanam means a continuous cultivation. Anya vilasita. And so anya vilas would mean no other desire. But Rupa Goswami has added the suffix ita, anya vilasita sunyam. And Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur has explained the significance of the suffix ita to mean that under ordinary circumstances, the devotee has no other desire. But in extreme circumstances, such as if the devotee is being attacked by deadly weapons, the devotee may pray for protection. His general mood in executing devotional service is not to pray for material protection or anything for himself. But Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says the significance of ita, anya vilasita sunyam, is that although in ordinary circumstances the devotee doesn't pray for anything for himself, but in extreme circumstances, such as if the devotee's life is being threatened, he may do so. And that is not a violation of the principle of pure devotional service. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, that process of surrender, I mean, you could say it like opens the door to bhakti, but it's also part of the consciousness of a devotee who is engaged in devotional service. So it's not really separate from bhakti either.
Well, thank you so much, Maharaj. We have most fallen hand raised, but before we go to most fallen, Maharaj, the answer you gave to Ms. Gill's question, what personally I'm realizing is that devotional service is quite different from anything material in the sense that, materially speaking, the means is always different from the goal. At least my understanding in devotional service is that even though the means in Krishna consciousness may appear to be different, but it's not different from the goal, because we're chanting Hare Krishna in order to attain Krishna. And when we are fortunate enough to attain Krishna, that does not mean that we give up the chanting. We continue to chant. So even though the means has given us the goal, but after attaining the goal, the concept of the mean still exists. So devotional, pure devotional service has no rules and regulations, but at our level, we need them. So those are the means. And when we actually attain pure devotional service, which is pure devotional service, but as long as we are in this material world, we do not give up the rules and the regulations. That's why Srila Prabhupada himself followed principles, even though he didn't need to. That's my understanding, Maharaj.
Yes, you're right, that devotional service is the means and the end. Yeah. And there's a line in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktiya Sanjatiya, Bhakti Sanjatiya Bhakti, which means bhakti comes from bhakti. And the explanation is that Bhava Bhakti comes from sadhana bhakti, and prema bhakti comes from bhava bhakti. But bhakti comes from bhakti. And the only requirement for the next stage of bhakti is the preceding stage of bhakti. We don't require anything outside of bhakti for our further advancement in bhakti.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. So we go to most fallen. What a beautiful name. Please unmute. If possible,
Yes,
turn on your camera, please.
Vajrakapa Pipasin Hubecha Patitanam Papnavio Namo Namaha Pisayama Basin Season, all glories to Shilpai, all glories to the devotees. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're breaking up, but we can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes. Maybe you may have to turn off your camera. We're not seeing anyway. Maybe your camera is interrupting with your audio.
Actually, I have turned off the camera, and now is it possible to hear me better? Oh,
Okay, go ahead and talk. I think Maharaj can still hear you.
Maharaj, it's so wonderful to see you as the sun is rising here in Arizona. My eyes have already seen the sun by seeing your lotus face. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You have not only cleansed our eyes of all the sin, and sinful repercussions, but you have also bathed us with your words of wisdom and the Bhagavad Gita as well as the Srimad Bhagavatam. So now I feel so clean that my shower was insufficient compared to your words. and I am happy to see you smiling, and I hope that you are well today. So I was thinking, thank you, Gail, for all the wonderful questions that you asked of Maharaj. It is so important to have a student like you who engages the teacher and enlightens him. And we pray that your day is wonderful. And I pray and I thank you for your action in your life. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
And I just wanted to praise and glorify you because I am too fallen to be like Gail to ask you any intelligent questions. So I wanted to praise you and love you from a distance. I do feel that I have I'm honored to be asked to be involved in your service, but I want more of your service. I want more of your service. Oh God, please don't. Okay. And I thank God for all the devotees, and I'm going to do my foolish fallen self. I just hope that I have. Oh, I was going to say, Prabhupada said that the pictures are windows to the virtual world. So I have a picture to the spiritual world, and even by just seeing Maharaj's face on a picture, you can be cleansed of your sinfulness. And Prabhupada said that just by looking at these wonderful. And the face of a pure devotee is even greater. That's why we look at Prabhupada's face, because Prabhupada is a pure devotee like Maharaj. So everyone, we see we are purified, and if that is a doorway to service, then I pray that I can keep entering into those doorways, and those doors are always open unto all of us, as well as my poor, humble, fallen self. All glories to you and your service. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. He was breaking up at some point, but I hope you heard him, all right?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
thank you. So anyone else with any question or comment, realizations, please? Let's do that before Maharaj leaves.
I can't stop anything.
See, Maharaj, I was making reference to the difference between our material experience and that of the spiritual. And the last sentence of the verse we discussed, Prabhupada was making emphasis on first class, second class, third class service to Krishna. And he was emphasizing on the first class. So in a material sense, everybody wants to be a first class in everything. Nobody wants to be referred to as a second class or third class. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains that a first class devotee is one who surrenders 100% to Krishna. I mean, yeah. There are many of us who are trying to serve Krishna, but many of us trying to serve Krishna are not first class because we are not fully surrendered to Krishna. So there are many things we do in life which are not directly involved in direct service to Krishna. In that state, do we as second, third class devotees also have any opportunity of attaining Krishna in the end if we are unable to graduate to get to the first level of being a first class devotee? That's my question, Maharaj.
Yes, I'll just reread that line.
Okay.
For transcendental realization or self-realization, many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are first-class methods, and some of them are second or third-class methods. The first-class method demands that one gives up all other methods and surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus be saved from all sins and their reactions. Sarvadharman parityaja, mamekam saranam vraja, tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayisyamima suchata. So I'm not sure what you mean when you say that you're not first class, because I mean,
Because I'm a grihasta, I have a wife, I have kids, and that means I have to work. And sometimes when working, I mean, like in the case of, sorry, am I right? In the case of someone who is fully like a brahmachari or a grihasta, sorry, a brahmachari or a sannyasi living in the temple, living in the ashram, generally all their effort is to serve Krishna. Whereas in the case of somebody like me, when I leave home for work, I'm working for myself. It's not for Krishna. And so that is where my worry is, because I may not be able to get to a level whereby I renounce anything and everything and just surrender to Krishna, depend on Krishna. And if I die in that condition, whether I will have any kind of mercy from the Lord for not abandoning me because I did not surrender 100% to him, which actually is the case of most devotees, because most devotees are grihastas working in the corporate world.
yes, being a householder and working does not mean that you are outside of Krishna consciousness. You say you're working for yourself, but I don't see it that way. You're working so that you can maintain your Krishna conscious lifestyle and the Krishna conscious lifestyle of your family members. There's no such thing that a grihasta cannot be a first-class devotee or a grihasta cannot go back home, back to Godhead. So I think that you're earning money to support your Krishna conscious lifestyle and the Krishna conscious lifestyles of your family members is not outside of devotional service. And, you know, I don't see that you're abandoning Krishna consciousness, and I expect that Krishna will give you his mercy at the time of your death so that you can come back to him.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I mean, this is a blessing on my knucklehead, but I think it's a blessing to almost every devotee who is just like me. We're struggling so hard in the corporate world, and sometimes we hope we just brahmacharis. When I was a brahmachari living in the temple, that was like the best of my life as an adult. You know, I didn't have much things to worry about, but now I have so many things to worry about. So, but I really appreciate your answer and the blessings also. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, nice. Jai.
So anybody else with a question or comment before we let Maharaj go?
If there's no one else, I do have,
Okay.
is there somebody else?
Yes, there is a hand up and then we'll come to you later, Gil. Imagori, please unmute.
We
Yeah,
can't hear
unmute.
you.
We can hear you. Okay,
Hare
good.
Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Can you?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Right.
This topic, devotee has asked about grihasthas not being first-class devotee. It just reminds me of something that His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami told us when he was in his last trip in Malaga. In various occasions, he has said it. He said, I really appreciate the services the grihasthas are doing, because I mean, Krishna, it's multiplied, like it's a lot of effort, because grihasthas have to, go out to work and maintain their families, and at the same time, you're keeping your Krishna consciousness. I mean, he was giving the grihasthas more credit than himself, because he was saying, I'm a sannyasi, I don't have any other business to do except to preach and all. But if, in spite of being a grihasthas, if you are doing the preaching work and maintaining your Krishna consciousness, Krishna takes that much more in account.
Okay. That's nice.
Exactly what you said also, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Imagori. Very beautiful. Mother Revati, please unmute.
Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I'm not going to put on my camera because the bandwidth is so low.
Yay! Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. My bandwidth is so low, so please forgive me for
Okay.
not putting on my camera.
Okay.
All right.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
My question is, even in devotional service, we may feel that some types of devotional service are more favorable for us and some types are not so favorable. But is this an incorrect way to be thinking? Or should we adjust our service to do those services that we feel are more favorable?
What do you mean by more favorable?
Well, some types of devotional service we may find difficult because working with other devotees, we may find that, there may be some politics. We may find that difficult to tolerate, or that may disturb our faith.
Well, it depends on the requirements of the service. If service that is difficult for you is not required to be done by you, then you can give preference to service that is more congenial to you. But if the situation demands that you do some service that puts you in a situation that ordinarily you wouldn't want to be in, but still, for the sake of the service, you may have to tolerate being in that situation. But all other factors being equal, you can engage in service in a situation that you find congenial.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Mother Revati. So, anyone else with any question, please? Maharaj, I have one last question. I believe this will be my last question. And that has to do, no, please, can I ask? Maharaj, I have to ask first. Can I ask my question? I've been asking lots of questions.
Yes, you can ask.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. So I would like to share the verse on the screen. So this is the opening sentence. In this verse, the king has placed two questions before the learned sages. The first question is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? Out of the two, the question relating to the dying man is most important because everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. So, and Srila Prabhupada goes on to say that from cantos 2 to 12 are all trying to expand on these two questions that Maharaj Pariksit put to Shukadev Goswami. We see that Maharaj Pariksit was a very prosperous and a very busy emperor. But when he got the news that he was going to be bitten by this snake bird in 7 days and die, he gave up everything. And Saint Percent was meditating on Krishna, and we all know by his grace, we now have, we now have the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada used to say that Maharaj Pariksit knew that he was going to die in 7 days. But what about us? We do not even know. We may not live up to 7 hours. And so if we have this mindset that we're going to die at any second, which is an obvious fact, and therefore we have to fully 100% dedicate ourselves to Krishna and nothing else. I'm wondering how we're going to be able to live as we are living now. So in effect, my question is, how do we live our lives in such a way that we think that death can come at any second, any minute, not even in 7 days, as Maharaj Pariksit did know, and at the same time, work and perform our duties as we're supposed to. Sometimes I think about this and I feel I am wasting my valuable time, because if I know that I'm going to die tomorrow, obviously I'm not going to go to work today. I will stay home and meditate and do many things. But because I am not thinking I'm going to die tomorrow, I go to work. So please, Maharaj, help in this way. Hare Krishna.
Well, I mean, we should be conscious of death and live our lives in such a way that we'll be able to pass the final exam at the time of death and think of Krishna. But that doesn't mean that, if you knew you were dying tomorrow, you wouldn't go to work. But as we discussed, you have to go to work to maintain your Krishna conscious lifestyle and the Krishna conscious lifestyle of your family members. And that's also not outside of Krishna consciousness. So the idea is, whatever you do, you should it should be connected to Krishna, and you should as far as possible be aware of the connection with Krishna, that it's ultimately required for you to maintain your Krishna conscious lifestyle.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you. It's not easy, but I think by the prayers and the blessings of the Vaishnavas, and we may get there. Shima Vara Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to your holiness, all glories to the assembly devotees.
Sade Prabhu's question that is actually bothering my mind. I'm wondering why it is difficult for us as practicing devotees to see why it is difficult for practicing devotees to not see their work as part of devotional service. I mean, separating their work from Krishna or from devotion, because that's not our philosophy. But if we as practicing devotees are having problem seeing our work as a service to Krishna, then I'm beginning to think that there's something that is out of place in our practice and our philosophy. I think the whole basis of bhakti is to do everything for Krishna and to see our duty as doing it for Krishna, whatever that may be, administrator, businessman, you have to see that that is being done for Krishna. Even the Muslims, they learn how not to separate their work from their devotion. That's why they stop to pray in the middle of their work 5 times daily. But I think that our philosophy, even though we claim that we are superior, we have a superior philosophy, but most of our devotees seems to have problems to be able to relate their work with their devotion. So please, Maharaj, what is the problem? Can you kindly help me to understand why a practicing devotee will not be able to see the connection between his work and his devotion? Thank you.
I don't see why a practicing devotee should not see the connection between his work and Krishna consciousness. He's working again so he can maintain his Krishna conscious lifestyle and the Krishna conscious lifestyles of his family members. And beyond that, to whatever extent he's able, he can contribute his earnings to the cause of Krishna consciousness. And he can even think, if I earn more, then I can give more for Krishna consciousness. So I don't see why it should be a problem to connect one's work with Krishna consciousness.
Please, I'm driving. I hope my voice is clear. Thank you, Maharaj. But I think there is a problem, or where the problem may lie. Maybe it's a speculation, but this is how I feel. That sometimes, like Krishna says, that we should not do another person's work. That it is dangerous to do somebody else's work. So I think this problem may arise if we actually don't feel very comfortable with what we're doing, and we probably think that we should be doing something else. So I think this problem may arise. And in that case, what do you advise, Maharaj?
Yes, I mean, Krishna says it's better to perform your duty imperfectly than someone else's duty perfectly. But what is your duty? That's the first question. And after you determine what your duty is, then do it as well as you can.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Ms. Gill, you have something else to say? Ask, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes.
Hare Krishna, please.
Just a comment and a question. One is, even before Raha Prabhu spoke, I was thinking to comment on this same question that you had, Sadev, which is about the separation between one's work and Krishna consciousness. In answer to Raha Prabhu's question, my thinking was that when we don't understand that devotional service is a matter of consciousness, not external mechanical activities, then we will wonder, is what I am doing actually devotional service? And I think to illustrate this point, that is why Krishna had Arjuna engage in the very ghastly warfare and have it still deemed as Krishna consciousness. Because what could seem farther from devotional service than killing, so many people? What to speak of killing, your elders in society and your authorities, your gurus, you know. Krishna, I feel, was showing that even such materially heinous crimes can be considered devotional service. So what to speak of if we were just going through our ordinary jobs? The fact that this conversation took place on the battlefield really drives home the point that devotional service is a matter of consciousness, not the specific work that you're doing. So that was my comment to
Good.
Sahadev's question.
Nice.
And my other thing was, actually when Sahadev was answering my question about, surrender versus as a doorway versus bhakti itself, I feel like as he was giving his answer, he gave me a realization, and maybe you can confirm whether it's a legitimate realization, is that, just as the Asadaka, they read Bhagavatam in order to become, to attain the goal of becoming pure in their Krishna consciousness, whereas a person who is already pure in their Krishna consciousness, they also read Bhagavatam. So both sadhaka and accomplished devotee, they're both doing the same activity, but it is just doing the same thing from a different standpoint. One is practicing and the other is perfected, but they're doing the same activity. So I'm thinking that similarly, when it comes to surrender as a doorway to bhakti and bhakti, the activity is the same, but the sadhaka, we call it doorway for him because he is trying to develop his bhakti, whereas the pure devotee, he's doing the same things, he's doing the 6 limbs, but from the standpoint of a person who is already perfected. So I'm thinking that this is the distinction, really, is the distinction between the position of the person performing the activities rather than the activities themselves. That's so different. I don't know if I was clear.
It sounds good to me.
Well, that's all I need to hear. Thank you, Maharaj. And thank you, Sahadev. That was really illuminating for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gail and Shimavara Prabhu, too. Thank you. And Maharaj, as always, thank you so much. Mother Revati, please unmute.
Hi, Krishna Guru Maharaj. So I was thinking about your answer, and you mentioned if someone else can't do the service, then we need to do it. We need to be tolerant. But I always hear that none of us are we're all replaceable in one sense. Like Krishna gives us the opportunity to serve. He doesn't require our service. We are given that opportunity, but it's not that we're irreplaceable. So how would we determine if we actually need to be the one to continue doing a particular service? even if we're not finding it so congenial, and maybe it's just our mind wants to do something that we find, materially more pleasant. We're not actually, maybe have the proper consciousness. So could you elaborate a little, please?
I would think you could ask your authorities. I imagine your authorities are aware of what has to be done and who's available to do it, and whether you're necessary to do it, or whether someone else can do it, or whether it's something that doesn't even really have to be done. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to work cooperatively with our authorities. So I would refer the matter to them. I mean, you can explain humbly and respectfully what your personal preference would be. And I would think if it's possible, if it's practical, your authority would accede to your request. But there might be a situation that does require you to do some service that ordinarily you wouldn't want to do in that situation. And then again, I think you just have to tolerate it and try to take shelter of Krishna, the holy name, and the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So you can tolerate.
Thank you, Kumash.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Maharaj, I would like you to take on this comment Ms. Gail made a few minutes ago, and that is devotional service is a matter of consciousness, which in one sense, I mean, with my vague understanding, is true, but oftentimes when devotees make such statement, I'm not saying directly that this is what Ms. Gail thinks, but generally, when devotees talk of devotional service is a matter of consciousness, we're not talking about consciousness as the mind, but consciousness as something in the mind. In other words, if I say that I love His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj, I can be sitting here in my consciousness, I say I love you, but that love has to translate when I see you physically. I have to demonstrate how much I love you. So I'm thinking that sometimes we say devotional service is in the consciousness, which in one sense is a fact, but that also will be proven by the physical act. And so if you would like to speak on this matter, Maharaj, because I find it a little bit of a problem that some of us devotees have sometimes. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. I don't exactly see what the problem is. I mean, devotional service is a matter of consciousness, which is true. And our, as Rupa Goswami gives the definition, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam, our consciousness should be favorable to Krishna. We should engage in the service to please Krishna. And yeah, I don't see what the problem is or the complication is.
Well, Maharaj, the problem is sometimes, because I heard from one devotee, I think Amarendra Prabhu, He's preaching everywhere online. And once he was saying that it is very particularly important we take notice how Srila Prabhupada translated bhakti. Srila Prabhupada translated bhakti as devotional service, because from what I heard Amarendra Prabhu say, bhakti means devotion. But Srila Prabhupada did not want anybody to sit down and say that I have devotion to Krishna, I have devotion to Krishna. It has to be practicalized. And so devotional service, which means if I have the devotion and there is the opportunity to manifest what I am thinking in my mind, then I should do it. But there are others who may say that devotional service is a matter of consciousness. And so I may sit down here, and if there is a service to be performed, like maybe cleaning the temple room, I may sit here and say, I'm thinking of Krishna, I'm serving Krishna in my mind, which in one sense is true, but it's also true that the temple room needs to be cleaned. That's why I asked that if you may shed something on it.
I agree. Other devotees have also commented on Srila Prabhupada's translation of bhakti as devotional service. And, we should be ready to do the needful when it comes to service. Like there was one morning walk conversation in Juhu, and His Holiness Lokanath Swami asked Srila Prabhupada, why have you prescribed 16 rounds? And Srila Prabhupada replied, I have not prescribed 16 rounds. I prescribed 16 rounds minimum. And Lokanath Swami said, but there are some devotees who are accepting for themselves a different number than 16. And Srila Prabhupada said, that's all right. They can increase the number from 16, but they cannot decrease the number from 16. And then Lokanath Swami said, well, how can we know if we're imitating Haridas Thakur? And Srila Prabhupada replied, well, if you're imitating Haridas Thakur by chanting more rounds, that's also good. And then Brahmananda Prabhu said, but what if there's service to be done? And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, well, if you say, I can't do the service because I'm busy imitating Haridas Thakur, that is very bad. So, yeah, we should be ready to do the service as required. And if not required, we can chant, that's also service.
Well, thank you so much, Maharaj. Ms. Gail, you're back? Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm back. Just a quick thing. What my understanding is that if a person has opportunity and facility to perform devotional service practically, and he doesn't, and he just claims he's doing it in his mind, that is called sentiment. That's not called devotional service.
Okay.
So you can do it in your mind if that Brahmin who was preparing sweet rice and burnt his finger,
Yeah.
Or that person who paved the road with all these jewels, or even Vasudev, who wanted to do that birth ceremony ritual for Krishna, but he couldn't because he was in prison. He did, those things were done in the mind. but only because they didn't have facility.
Yeah.
If they had facility, they would have definitely done it. So if you have facility and you don't do it, that is called sentiment only. That's why Prabhupada said he coined the term devotional service.
Yeah.
He didn't say just devotion. He said devotional service.
Yeah.
That's my comment.
Thank you. Well, Maharaj, do you have any concluding statement to make before we bring this to a close? Hare Krishna.
No, I've appreciated the opportunity to speak Krishna Katha with all of you. I'm ready to move on to other service, and I'm ready to let you also move on to other service. And I just suggest that we end with Vaishnava Pranam.
Yes, thank you so much, Maharaj, for being here. So, dear devotees, we humbly request you all to kindly unmute your mics, your microphones, and we all together chant the Hare Krishna mantra to express our appreciation of Maharaj's presence and speaking to us. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Rama,
Rama, Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama.
Rama, Hare
All glories to His Holiness, Giriraj Swami Maharaj ki.
Jai.
All glories to His
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj.